There comes a moment when even your own shadow walks ahead of you, no longer waiting, no longer loyal. You reach for the familiar warmth of connection, and your hand closes around nothing. The silence you once feared becomes the only voice that tells the truth. You sit among friends and feel like a stranger. Their laughter is loud, but it passes through you like smoke. Their questions scrape the surface, never daring to dig deep enough to find the real you. The one that aches, the one that watches, the one that knows. You've tried to shrink yourself, tried to make your fire smaller so they could stand closer without getting burned. But every time you dimmed, something holy in you protested. Something eternal cried out. You don't belong in the middle, you were carved for the edge. And now that edge has become your home, not because you chose it, but because heaven did. You were not rejected, you were refined. You were not abandoned, you were anointed. That ache you carry, it's not loneliness. It's legacy growing in silence. You walk through seasons where your name is not spoken, your worth not seen, your love not returned. And still, you rise. Because even when the world turns its back, the call of God turns your face toward the fire. Like stars buried in blue daylight, you remain unseen by those who only look in the shallow hours. But your light was never meant for crowds, it was meant for kingdoms. If this silence has ever felt like your only friend, you already know this isn't just a video, it's a mirror. Subscribe now, because you're not meant to walk this road in hiding. And if you won't, step into the comments and explain why you keep choosing exile over your own awakening. You are not too strange. You are not too intense. You are not too much. You are exactly what this generation tried to silence. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right too soon. You were never built to wear the labels they offered you. Too emotional, too deep, too isolated. They named you out of their fear, not your failure. You were not meant to fit in. You were meant to pierce through. You weren't born to be liked. You were born to be light. And light always exposes something. That ache in your soul. That discontent that no relationship, no platform, no title has ever been able to settle. It's not dysfunction. It's design. It's the mark of the messenger, the burden of the one who hears from heaven while everyone else sleeps through the noise. You are a vessel, a carrier of oil they can't see until they need it. You're the one they mock now, but the one they'll run to when the lamps start going out. This fire you carry, it didn't come from comfort. It came from crushing, from wilderness, from learning how to walk with God when no one else wanted to. You didn't read your way into this, you bled your way into it, and the world has no idea who they've ignored. They thought your silence meant weakness, it meant wisdom. They mistook your boundaries for bitterness, but heaven calls it obedience. You've been forged, not forgotten. Your scars are not your shame, they're your signatures. Proof that you've survived battles no one clapped for, victories in the shadows, tears that baptized you into something greater than applause. Purpose. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break chains, to carry a word that will shake bones, to be the interruption in bloodlines, to be the one who says no more, and heaven answers back, "We heard you." So stop apologizing for the weight you carry. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop waiting for permission to become what God already called you. If you know deep down that you've never fit in for a reason, this is your confirmation. Subscribe now, and if you don't, tell us in the comments what's stopping you from owning who you are when the earth is groaning for exactly what's inside of you. There is a trap in the silence, a voice that whispers, if you were truly chosen, you wouldn't feel so alone. It's subtle, but deadly. It creeps in on cold nights and unanswered prayers. It convinces you that isolation is punishment, not preparation. But listen carefully. Loneliness is not always the absence of people, it's the absence of alignment. You weren't abandoned, you were separated. The anointing always isolates before it elevates. But if you don't recognize the season, you'll try to escape it. You'll open the door to counterfeit comfort, to voices that soothe your ego but poison your spirit. You'll call everyone friend just to avoid calling yourself alone. But some of those smiles, they hide knives. They speak blessings in front of you, and release curses behind you. They clap for your strength but pray for your stumble. And if you're not watchful, you'll embrace them and hand your peace over in exchange for their presence. It's a dangerous thing to crave company more than you crave clarity, because the wrong people won't just waste your time, they'll rewire your identity. They'll convince you that your hunger for righteousness is too much. They'll make you question what God confirmed in the quiet. And then comes the slow compromise, not all at once, just a soft bending. You start lowering your standards so you're not left out. You call it love, but heaven calls it a leash. What began as a longing for connection becomes a longing for chains. You start settling, laughing at what used to grieve you, entertaining what you used to rebuke. And the light in you starts dimming, not because God left you, but because you let someone else take the seat he once had. Every hour spent entertaining distractions is a kingdom hour lost. Some of you don't need another open door. You need a closed one. You need the courage to say, "This is not where my oil is welcome," because not everyone can steward what's sacred in you. And don't be fooled. The enemy rarely shows up with red horns and threats. No, he's more clever than that. He'll arrive through comfort, through ease, through the things that feel almost right. But steal your urgency, he'll wrap chains in charm. And if you don't discern it, you'll sit in prison and call it peace. So guard your mind, guard your hunger, guard your circle. You are not called to be casual in a generation under spiritual siege. You're not meant to be entertained. You're meant to be entrusted. If any of this exposed your truth, don't just scroll. Subscribe and step into the light. Or tell us in the comments why you choose to keep your eyes shut while the enemy builds altars in your blind spot. Your pain is not random. It's not wasted. It's proof. Proof that the fire didn't consume you. Proof that the silence wasn't the end. It was the edge of something holy. Your tears, collected. Your groans, interpreted. Heaven has heard every unspoken cry. You think the silence means God is distant, but the silence means he's near. Near enough to form you, not in the crowd, but in the cave. Look through the pattern. Moses didn't find his voice in Pharaoh's court. He found it in exile, stuttering in the wilderness. Elijah didn't hear God in the earthquake or the fire. He heard him in the whisper, alone, under a broom tree, asking to die. And even Jesus, the Son of God, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Before the miracles, before the multitudes, before the resurrection, there was solitude, testing, temptation, silence. This is not punishment, this is preparation. God doesn't bury his warriors, he hides them. You're not forgotten. You're being forged. The oil is being pressed, the sword is being sharpened. You say, "But I'm tired." Good. You're supposed to be. You've been wrestling angels in the dark. You've been carrying mantles that most people don't even recognize. But now, it's time to remember who you are. You are not weak. You are warring. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not small. You are sent. There is power in your voice, even when it shakes. There is fire in your bones, even when you whisper. There is thunder in your legacy, even when you walk alone. Chosen ones are not pampered. They're prepared. They're not just lifted. They're lit by the fire of trials, by the weight of purpose, by the nearness of God that others will never understand. So stop apologizing for your anointing. Stop watering down your words to fit their comfort. Stop dimming your light to make room for shadows. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to break through. The kingdom does not advance by the loudest voice. It advances through the most obedient. And you, yes, you, have been trusted with more than most. This is not your time to retreat. This is your time to remember, to refocus, to reclaim your authority, because the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead is not just beside you, he's in you. That means the enemy isn't fighting your weakness. He's terrified of your awakening. You've endured too much to walk away now. You've bled too long to drop the sword at the finish line. So subscribe and take it back. Take back your edge, your urgency, your identity. Or comment and tell us, why are you laying it down while the kingdom waits for you to rise? You were never meant to be available to everyone. Your heart was never designed to be passed around like cheap advice. Your time was never meant to be stretched thin across people who only call when they're hungry but disappear when you're dry. You are not common. You are consecrated. And consecration comes with cost. It will cost you your popularity. It will cost you your convenience. It will even cost you relationships you thought were sent from God. But what is holy cannot remain accessible to everything. What is sacred must be protected. You've been taught to feel guilty for pulling away. But what if the withdrawal wasn't rebellion? It was obedience. What if the distance wasn't avoidance? It was divine strategy. Sometimes God doesn't separate you to punish you. He separates you to preserve you. Because not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone can carry what you're carrying. And not everyone should have access to your garden while you're still being planted. Let your no be a sermon. Let your boundaries be a prophetic wall. Let your absence preach louder than your presence ever did. You don't need to explain your silence. Your peace is your proof. Your discernment is your defense. This isn't arrogance. This is consecration. You're not being cold. You're being cold apart. You're not avoiding people. You're avoiding pollution. Because the oil on your life is too precious to be spilled in rooms that can't hold it. The word in your belly is too weighty to be shouted into ears that only want entertainment. You weren't called to be cute. You were called to disrupt. Disrupt comfort. Disrupt compromise. Disrupt culture. That's why you never fit in. That's why even in a crowd, you feel like you're watching from a distance. You carry heaven's tension. You walk with kingdom weight. You breathe with a fire that exposes idols. You can't be everyone's friend and still be God's vessel. You can't sit at every table and still keep your purity. You can't pour into every cup and still keep oil in your lamp. You want miracles? Set boundaries. You want clarity? Get quiet. You want power? Turn down the noise and tune in to the one voice that matters. There's a reason the prophets were always on the outskirts. There's a reason the apostles were hated before they were honored. There's a reason Jesus said, "I did not come to bring peace, but a sword." You were never called to coddle demons. You were never sent to decorate cages. You were never anointed to entertain crowds while your own soul starves. So stop apologizing for the separation. Stop trying to explain your boundaries to people who were never meant to be in your covenant. Stop watering down what's holy just to be palatable. You're not being selfish. You're being faithful. You're not being dramatic. You're being delivered. You're not being distant. You're being drawn deeper. This is your season to guard the garden, to silence the noise, to protect the purity. Because revival does not come through the popular. It comes through the prepared. So if your soul sighed in relief hearing this, that's not relief. That's recognition. That's your spirit saying yes to the call. Subscribe. Take your post back. Redraw the lines. Stand your watch. Or comment below and tell us, why do you keep sacrificing yourself on the altar of being liked when you were born to be set apart? They won't remember the silence you kept, but they'll rest beneath the peace it purchased. They may never know the names of the battles you fought alone, but they'll live in the freedom those battles unlocked. Your obedience is building altars your children will one day weep on. Altars they didn't have to construct, because you laid the stones in secret. Your discipline is delivering bloodlines you haven't even met. Chains that wrapped around your grandparents, you're breaking them with a whisper and a fast. Every no you whisper today, to lust, to laziness, to comfort, to compromise, is a resounding yes your descendants will shout from mountaintops. You think your loneliness is empty? No. It's echoing in heaven. It's rewriting your family's story in the spirit. You're not just surviving for yourself. You're surviving for the child who won't have to survive the same. You're not just standing for today. You're standing for the day when your name becomes a pillar, not a warning. This is legacy, not built in stages or applause, but in secret yeses to God when no one is watching. The tears you cry alone now will water the roots of oak trees your grandchildren will climb. They'll eat fruit from branches you never touched, shade their children under leaves you never saw, and they'll thank a God they met because you didn't quit. You think this calling is just about you? It's not. It's about the girl born 20 years from now who will never know what it's like to question her worth because you chose purity over popularity. It's about the son your son will raise who'll carry strength in his bones because you built your house on the rock instead of sand and screens and applause. This is about the ripple, the echo, the silent revolutions you're starting just by waking up and obeying again. You think no one sees you, but heaven is keeping record. The angels are writing chapters in ink for a story you won't finish. But you started. When you said yes. When you said no. When you prayed when you didn't feel like it. When you turned off the noise. When you forgave instead of revenged. When you worshipped through the breaking. That's when eternity took a breath and said, "Here comes a builder." You are planting trees under whose shade you may never sit. You are digging wells your grandchildren's grandchildren will drink from. And no, they may not sing your name, but they will walk in your victory. They will inherit your strength. They will bless your bones, because the price you pay in private echoes into the public spaces of generations to come. So don't you dare call your obedience small. Don't you dare think your yes doesn't matter. Don't you dare reduce your sacrifice to something invisible and forgotten. Heaven remembers, hell fears it, and history will feel it. So if you want your life to matter past your breath, if you want your ceiling to be someone else's floor, if you want to be remembered as the one who broke it so they didn't have to carry it, subscribe. Join the ones who are building legacy, not just lifestyle, or go ahead and comment. Tell us why legacy isn't enough for you. Why you'd rather live for the crowd than for a crown your grandchildren will wear. You are not rejected. You are reserved, set apart, hidden, not because you were forgotten, but because you were too sacred to be handed over casually. You were not abandoned. You were anointed. While others rushed into stages, you were wrapped in stillness. While they gathered followers, he gathered you. Every tear you shed in silence was oil. Every moment you felt unseen was heaven sealing the scroll. Your pain was not wasted. It was processed into power. Let your tears turn to fire. Let your silence roar. Because the enemy didn't come after you for who you were. He came after you for who you carry. You carry kingdom. That's why the crowd walked away. That's why the door shut. That's why the phone didn't ring. They weren't rejecting you. They were making room for heaven. You were not called to be liked. You were called to be light. And light doesn't entertain darkness. It exposes it. It aggravates it. It disrupts it. So stop shrinking. Stop editing yourself to make others comfortable in your presence. You don't owe your softness to anyone who mocks your fire. You don't owe your peace to people who profit from your silence. This is the moment where the shaking becomes standing, where the breaking becomes birthing. This is your upper room, and the fire is falling. Not on the clever, not on the pretty, not on the popular, but on the prepared. You weren't called to convenience, you were called to consecration. You were never chosen to be comfortable. You were chosen to be changed. The cocoon didn't kill the caterpillar. It prepared the wings. So flap, roar, break open. You are becoming flame. You are becoming sword. You are becoming sanctuary. You are the prayer your grandmother whispered and your great-grandchild will inherit. You are the prophecy hell tried to abort. You are the revival walking into rooms that forgot how to breathe. This is not the end. This is the uprising. Let the rejected rise. Let the misfits assemble. Let the broken march. Let the lonely prophesy. Let the forgotten build altars from the ashes. Let the weeping turn to warring. You were never meant to make sense. You were meant to make impact. You don't need to fit in when you were called to set fire. You don't need applause when heaven already approved you. This is the season of unexplainable boldness, of tears turned into trumpets, of pain pressed into preaching, of scars shining like swords in the dark, of warriors rising from the wreckage. You are not the end of your bloodline's mistakes. You are the beginning of its miracles. You are not the result of your trauma. You are the rebuke to it. You are not the consequence. You are the correction. You are the answered prayer, the final blow, the chosen voice. You were not born for stage lights. You were born for storm clouds. You were not born for approval. You were born for authority. You were not born for crowds. You were born to confront principalities. You don't need a platform. You are the pulpit. Every step you take is warfare. Every word you speak is a seed. Every boundary you set is a battle cry. You are not fragile. You are not too much. You are not inconvenient. You are the kingdom clothed in clay. You are the oil walking in skin. You are the roar of 1,000 silent saints who suffered so you could speak. So this is your call. Not to subscribe to a channel, not to like a video, but to remember who you are, to walk in what they tried to bury, to fight for what no one taught you to carry, to stand, even if your knees shake, to roar, even if your voice cracks, to rise, even if no one claps. Because this was never about comfort. It was about calling. It was never about applause. It was about anointing. It was never about fitting in. It was about finishing well. So if this struck something in you, if your spirit is trembling and your heart is on fire, don't scroll away. Subscribe, not for content, but as a memorial to this moment, or head to the comments and confess what's holding you back from the fire. What's keeping your roar locked behind politeness? What's stopping your sword from swinging? What lie is convincing you to sit when God called you to stand? This isn't entertainment. This is war. This is your wake-up. This is the cry at midnight. And your lamp is lit. Now go. Roar. Burn. Finish. And don't look back.